I'm Rip Esselstyn, and you're listening to the Plant Strong podcast. Today, we have an opportunity to meet an icon in the plant-based space, Dr. Ruth Heidrich. Ruth went vegan in 1982, long before it was a thing, was able to beat breast cancer, and has become a legendary marathoner, IRONMAN competitor, and author. You may recall that she was featured in the groundbreaking documentary, Forks Over Knives. Her book, A Race for Life, celebrates its 24th anniversary with updates and anecdotes, and we're going to learn about this extraordinary woman, Dr. Ruth Heidrich, right after a few words from Plant Strong. Hey, Plant Strongers, it's not too late to join me and the Plant Strong team for our next in-person experience. Come join us in beautiful Sedona, Arizona from October 8th to the 13th. We have 9 slots available for this exclusive and very immersive retreat. Spend a week among the red rocks of Arizona, and we'll do all the cooking. That sounds awesome. You get to come, relax, meet new friends, get answers to all your burning questions, enjoy yoga, hikes, endless buffets of plant-based meals. You get to be entertained and educated with our world-class presentations. You can challenge me at pickleball, and all the while, you're going to be fully supported by our incredible, spectacular team. I can't wait to meet you. Simply register at liveplantstrong.com or send us an email with all your questions at hello@plantstrong.com. Here's another fun milk mustache update. If you've been thinking about trying our plant-based milks, now is the time. I'm so confident that once you try our super clean, whole, fortified plant milks, you'll be a fan that I'm going to offer a 2-pack for just $2 when you spend $50 on any of our other products. Come to plantstrong.com, fill your cart with $50 worth of delicious and nutritious products, and then add your choice of milk 2-pack and the promo code MILK, M-I-L-K, and you'll get to try our milks for just $2. That's a $10 value, but I feel so strongly that you're going to love these milks, we're practically giving them away. You can try our unsweetened oat, our unsweetened almond, our oat and almond blend, or our oat and walnut blend, and prepare to fall in love with your new favorite milk. These are the perfect sidekick to your Rip's Big Bowl cereal, to Plant Strong dessert-inspired granola, or just to whip up a batch of our fluffy whole grain date-sweetened pancakes, or our cornbread muffins. I can't wait for you to try our milks. Act now because this deal will only last until August 31st. Use the code MILK to get a 2-pack for just $2. It's not every day that I get to speak with a living legend in the whole food plant-based space, but today I have a treat for you in the form of Dr. Ruth Heidrich. Hers is a story not just of survival of breast cancer, but also one of inspiration, joy, and serendipity. To her, it's no coincidence that one of the first doctors she came across after her diagnosis with breast cancer was none other than a young Dr. John McDougall. He and his wife Mary changed everything for her. And it's no coincidence that after adopting his whole food, plant-based, low-fat diet, Ruth had decades upon decades of athletic success in running, biking, swimming, and Ironman triathlons. She was voted Runner's World Magazine's Runner of the Year and is the winner of more than 900 trophies and counting, 8 gold medals in the U.S. Senior Olympics, and 67 marathons, including Boston, New York, and Moscow. And while she was always fit and athletic, she attributes her success and longevity to her diet. Let's get to know this ageless wonder, Dr. Ruth Heidrich. All right, Dr. Ruth Heidrich, welcome to the Plant Strong podcast.
Thank you. I'm Plant Strong too.
Oh, You and I have a lot in common.
I
I
know.
can't wait to dive into it, Ruth.
Yeah.
And it's almost shameful that we've never met face to face. I can't believe it because you are such an icon in the whole food plant-based movement.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we came close. You sent out an invitation a few years ago, but I was already on another
Yeah.
broadcast at the same time and couldn't make it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ruth, where are you living right now? Are you in Hawaii somewhere?
Oh, yeah. Honolulu, downtown.
So you like Oahu, huh?
Oh, yeah.
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 Do you
Yeah.
have a favorite of the Hawaiian Islands?
Oh gosh, they're each unique for different reasons. I love the volcano on the Big Island. That is to see land being made
Yeah.
and the power of a volcano and what it can and cannot do. That's amazing. Maui, of course, you've heard about Lahaina,
Yeah.
which used to be a beautiful place to visit right on the shore. Uh, and we do are you familiar with you are because we had you as speaker, the Vegan Society of Hawaii. We do
Yes.
send our speakers to Maui there, so that's
Yeah, no,
favorite.
you were kind enough to have me as your guest speaker maybe 2 months ago for
Yeah,
the Vegan Society of Hawaii. So thank you
yeah.
for that. No,
But it was
yeah,
Zoom, not in person. If it had
no,
been in person, you'd have given the same talk on Maui. And
right.
Kauai is the garden island, so it is just beautiful too.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I want you to know that I've been to all the islands that you just named and several times each. And you're right. Every one of them has their special qualities. I hiked the Nepali Trail on Kauai.
oh, beautiful, beautiful.
In,
Yeah.
incredible. Obviously, I've done the Hawaii Ironman on the Big Island of Hawaii, as have you, and I can't wait to talk about that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And I've been to Maui. God, I think I've been to Maui 10 times for the Xterra World Championship Triathlon.
That's
Um, yeah, yeah,
that's a,
yeah. And then I did the Waikiki International Triathlon in 1995 and really enjoyed Honolulu, and I went to the North Shore and everything that island has to offer.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So Ruth, let's dive in. I want to talk about you. So if I'm not mistaken, this year it's is it the 24th anniversary of a book that you wrote 24 years ago called A Race for Life?
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
And it needed an update because so many things have happened since then. Just amazing things, both good and bad.
Yeah.
And so
Can you
that's what
show us what the book looks like?
a totally new revised edition. That's what A Race for Life.
And then it
Uh,
says a diet and exercise program for super fitness and reversing the aging process.
yep, yep.
Wow. And this really is, I mean, just to kind of set the tone for this conversation that I'm going to have with you, it really is. It's the amazing story of you and how you survived stage 4 breast cancer to take on one of the toughest races in the world.
You know, it was a combination of curiosity and serendipity. I mean, the odds of this happening are so rare. Uh, Not the cancer itself,
Yeah.
that was not rare at all, except that I had been a runner for 14 years at that time
Mm.
and considered myself fit and healthy. The last person I would have thought to get breast cancer. But there it was, this big lump. And I even watched the surgery. The surgeon said, no, no, you don't want to do that. I said, yes, I do. I don't believe it could be cancer. So I watched the surgery. What came out was this big around. It was just incredible in size. And they took a frozen section in pathology and it came back infiltrating ductal carcinoma, stage 4, because I had been having the bone pain, the lungs problem, all kinds of things. And all of us, my whole world just got dumped overnight. And I was stunned trying to think, what has happened to me? And I had gone on medical leave from work. I was an Air Force logistics officer at Hickam Air Force Base at the time. And because I was off work, I just idly picked up this newspaper and I see a little ad, 3 lines. Women who have breast cancer to participate in diet research study. And I saw the telephone number. It's a local number. And I thought, I know it's not diet. I've had nutrition, university level nutrition. Yeah. I knew what quote a good diet is, skin off the chicken and brown bread and low fat dairy. So I thought, I'm going to help this person prove that it's not diet. So I go to the phone, and believe it or not, I get right through to a Dr. John McDougall.
Wow. Who we know and is an absolute legend in these circles.
Yep. And he was a very young doctor at the time. I see pictures of him back then. He looked like a kid compared to now. Of course, now he's in his 70s. And I told him I had just read the ad and I had just been diagnosed with breast cancer 3 days ago. And he said, get your medical records. I want to talk to you. So, of course, I do that and walk into his office, and Mary's there, his wife, and receptionist and helper and all that. So I have my medical records in hand, and we hand them to Dr. McDougall, and he's thumbing through all the paperwork. And he said, with a cholesterol of 236, you are at just a higher risk of dying of a heart attack as you are the breast cancer. And I said, wait a minute, Dr. McDougall, I have been a runner for 14 years. I've run marathons. There's no way I can't have cancer, despite the pathology report. And my heart, I did do marathons. And he said, yes, you can. And besides, you've got borderline high blood pressure. To have all this calamity dumped on me at once, I'm just stunned.
Yeah. Thanks for all the presents.
Yeah. But I was thinking, he's right. He's a doctor. He knows all this. I better listen. And I don't think I really said, where's the evidence? But I was hesitating a little bit. And I told him at the time I was working on my PhD, and I was very familiar with journal articles. He showed me the research and opens up a file drawer. And he says, here's the stack of files on the research so far. Again, this is back in 1982. And there are animal studies and there are epidemiological studies. And you know what the research shows. Yeah. And this was about the time Colin Campbell was also doing his research on especially casein and cancer. And of course, with my diet, I told him, my diet is, my milk dairy is so low fat. It's carnation instant powder. And of course, high concentration of casein. What does that do to estrogen receptors? So with all that information, especially showing me all the countries with high animal oil consumption, high breast cancer, but not only that, colon cancer, prostate cancer. Anyway.
Correlates directly.
It's, almost a 100% correlation, just the opposite in those countries that don't, like Africa and China, rarely get breast cancer. Of course, you and I know the westernization of the diet is spread to the Asian countries and in Africa if they can afford it, and they'll eat it. So
Yeah.
anyway, I walked out of his office 2 hours later, confirmed that that's it. I'm doing the diet. And it was amazing what all happened, the good and the bad. The bad was when I got home and told my then husband all about this, his reaction was, "What? Give up fish, chicken,
So,
milk? You got to be kidding." And I said, "No." He showed me the research. He said, "Oh, come on. I gave you credit for more intelligence than that." Oh, what an insult, huh?
so he
And
was not, so he was not on board.
not on board at all.
So I'm just gonna. So did that cause a major divide in your marriage, or was the marriage already wobbly?
And it caused the major divide because I thought, with the years that we had been married, that
Hmm.
he'd come around, but he wouldn't. He said, "You've fallen into a cult." And he said, "Okay, if you're going to do it, I'm not." So
Hmm.
well, I can do it on my own. I did have the support of both Dr. McDougall and Mary,
Yeah.
because anytime a question came up, I I felt completely free to call them, and they started offering cooking classes. Well, he did come to me with me for the cooking classes, but didn't didn't make any, he and I at the time, back in those days, we thought that this diet was just for breast cancer.
Hmm.
Never dawned on me that it would be for all these other things.
All the manifestations of of chronic Western
Yeah,
disease
that it was the best
caused that.
diet
Yeah.
for
Oh.
his high blood pressure,
And
which
prostate and yeah.
doctor, Rip, his doctor told him that diet had nothing to do with his high blood pressure.
Hmm.
And he also had ED.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I never dreamt at that time what the significance of that was. It took several years before I realized that this diet is for everything, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had blood tests after being on the diet for 3 weeks, got the results, went back to Dr. McDougall's office, and he looked at the 236 high cholesterol down to 129.
Mm.
He shook his head. He said, "I can tell you didn't cheat." I said, "Cheat? Dr. McDougall, this is my life." He said, "You'd be surprised at
Mm.
how many of my patients cannot do it, or if they start it, they can't stick with it." So that's great with your low cholesterol and your blood pressure dropping. And I had other signs. The bone pain started disappearing right
Wow.
away. Yeah, the results were quick. In fact, it's so funny when I've been giving talks. One of the first questions people ask is, "How soon did the diet start working?"
Hmm.
And I grin and say, "The next morning." They say, "What? The next morning?" Yes, I had been constipated all my life, and doctors had been telling me 3 or 4 times a week is normal for some people. Well, that's not true at all. And anyone who is plant strong knows that fiber is the answer
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Yeah. It makes you poop strong. No doubt about it.
strong. That's good.
Yeah. Now,
Yep.
now, now, Ruth, Dr. McDougall didn't just put you on a whole food plant-based diet. He put you on a whole food plant-based low fat diet. Can you speak to that?
No nuts and seeds, no avocados, no olives. Yeah.
And so okay. So meaning that he wanted your total fat consumption to be 10% or less. Is that about right?
Right. Yep. Yeah.
And did you find that to be difficult or
No,
no?
no, because I was enjoying the taste of brown rice and squash and broccoli and the papayas and mangoes that we have here, even guavas. So I was really enjoying the diet. And with Mary's, let me show you Dr. McDougall's first
Wow.
book.
Wow.
It's look at this. You see how old it is.
Incredible.
And, yeah, I know. And it's
that needs to go into a museum.
I know. And also, I made a copy of the announcement in the paper, women with breast cancer to participate in diet research study called 262, which is a Kailua exchange. So I knew it was close by.
Well, Ruth, and the reason why I want you to talk about that whole food, plant-based, low fat is because in your book, you reference the Harvard nurses study, with close to 100,000 people, women, and they were not going, though, on a low-fat diet. They were going on whatever diet they were going on. I don't think it was whole food, plant-based, but it was more like 30% of their calories coming from fat, which at the time was considered low fat.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Which really wasn't. And so, of course, they weren't getting the results that you got, that my father's patients get, that Dr. McDougall's patients get, Ornish, Clapper, all these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, Ruth, if you don't mind, I want you to know, I read your book. It's absolutely, I can't believe what a great book it is. It is so thorough. I want to dive into more about your diagnosis. So you went in, you had that lump removed, and then I think you went back in, and then the doctor said, "Why'd you wait so long to come in?" Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, "What are you talking about?" And then what did you say?
I just had a mammogram less than 6 months ago, and it was negative. And he said, "Oh." Anyway, it was just.
And then he said, I think he said it's because you had dense breast tissue, right?
And scar tissue from a previous biopsy. So I'd had a history of other lumps, which they had biopsied, which were not cancer.
Right.
And of course, I was sure this would be the case with this one, but
yeah.
No. In fact, I was getting second opinions, third opinions, and I think after the fifth one, I was convinced.
Yeah.
Of course, what I didn't know at the time was these were oncologists, not pathologists. And the root of the cause was under the microscope, looking at the cells themselves. And also because there were no clear margins on that tumor, it meant it had spread beyond what he took out in the lumpectomy. So I had to have a complete mastectomy. And I owe a debt of gratitude to your grandfather, Dr. Cryle. You know why?
Well, you tell me. You tell me.
Because they used to take the pectoralis muscle out to be safe. They thought that cancer would spread not only to the bones and the lymph nodes, but also to the muscle. And Dr. Cryle said, no, it doesn't spread to muscle. So stop doing these radical mastectomies and do a modified radical. So I was one of the first patients that benefited from that because we had a reach to recovery group, other cancer patients. And the person that I was paired with had the radical. And so I knew what she was going through. It was horrible. So I was lucky in that respect.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing him up. Yeah, he's been quoted by several people as the savior of the American female breasts for bringing in, over from England, the modified radical mastectomy, or better known as the lumpectomy.
Yeah,
exactly.
And there's a big difference between the lumpectomy and the modified radical. A lumpectomy is just the lump itself. The modified radical is all the skin, the nipple, they took the skin from the bottom of the inframammary fold, where the bra goes under, to the very top, almost up here, took all that skin off, and then they pull it together, stretching the skin to make the suture closure. And they did tell me of the possibility of reconstruction after a year. If the skin is stretched enough, they can put an implant under there. And I thought, oh, because I was at the time, I had, as I mentioned, been running marathons and wanted to get back to running because I knew that fitness was so important. And when I was in the hospital, I asked the doctor, how soon could I get back to running? And he said, oh, as soon as you feel like it. I said, when am I going to feel like it? He said, oh, 2 weeks, maybe. I said, no, no way am I going to wait that long. So that
you waited 3 days. 3 days. And you talk about how you were out there running and you were just crying tears of joy.
Yeah. And in fact, well, this is before the second surgery. They brought me into the hospital the night before, and I had my bag with my running shoes, my running singlet and shorts, and no bras. And so I thought, well, I'm going to run as soon as I can. So the next morning, I had so much. Well, let me see.
Well, I
exactly the sequence, but I was doing this run, the 6-mile run at 5:00 in the morning. The surgery was scheduled for 7. And as I finished the run, I come around to the entrance, and guess who's just coming to work at the time? My surgeon. And he says, what in the world are you doing here? And I said, doctor, I just had to get one last run before the second surgery. And so when at 7:00, when they wheeled me up to the operating room, the surgeon says, give this lady some extra fluid. She's dehydrated. You can't drink anything after midnight and after running and sweating. And then they couldn't get the needle in to find the vein because I was so dehydrated. It took 3 people, each level a little higher and better at starting venipuncture, getting into the vein to take the blood and to put in fluids. And so after they got it in and they started the anesthesia, the last thing I remember saying is, see, there's no problem with running before surgery. The next thing I knew, of course, I'm in the recovery room. And
Ruth, what was going on with your second surgery? What were they doing?
Well, that was the modified radical. The first one was just a lumpectomy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's where you observed it. They put you under local anesthesia, and you watched them take out the golf ball size lump. Got it. And so tell me, and I want to come back because we kind of took a bit of a detour here. You were talking about the reconstruction surgery, which I want to come back to in a sec. But so you went, serendipitously, you saw this ad, you hooked up with Dr. John McDougall, started eating whole food, plant-based. What were his thoughts around you doing chemotherapy and radiation, which I think was recommended, if I'm not mistaken?
Oh, yeah. He said, the condition of being in my research that I'm doing is that there can only be one variable. If you have chemotherapy and radiation, people will say it was the chemo and radiation that did, not the diet. So he said, because of that, you cannot have any other variable other than the diet. So, and I do. Thanks for taking me back to that. I remember thinking, oh gosh, what do I do? Which way do I go? And then I thought, well, I can always do the chemo later. So I'm going to start with the diet. And if it's not working, then I'll do the chemo and radiation.
Yeah.
And of course, as I mentioned, the bone pain went away, everything just got so much better.
Well, and he also told you that, Ruth, you want to have as much of your immune system operating at the top level as you can. And that, chemotherapy
Right.
radiation is going to wipe that out.
He did say
Right.
permanent damage to your immune system.
Yeah.
And that was another thing I did not want.
Well, so let me ask you this. Help educate myself and the audience here. So you were diagnosed with stage 4. What exactly does stage 4 mean, and what did they give you as far as your chances for surviving?
Stage 4 means that the cancer had spread and metastasized to different parts of the body. And that's the definition. And of course, I had those signs. A chest x-ray showed a small tumor the bottom of my left lung, which, as it turned out, to kind of jump way ahead, they sent me to specialists in pulmonology. And the first one said, oh gosh, we hate to do a biopsy. It's in a part of the lung that's really hard to get to. Let me refer you to my boss. So it takes a while to get an appointment. So I go to the next level up, and he says, there are no changes from the first x-ray. I wonder, he said, let me pass this on to my boss. So 3 levels up, pulmonologist, oncologist. And this is 6 months later. And he said, I think that it has encapsulated, that it hasn't changed in the 6 months since your diagnosis. Let's just watch it and see. If it does start to change, then we'll have to do the surgery or chemo or something. But so far, he says, I think you're going to be okay as far as the immune system encapsulating it.
Yeah. And did they ever say, okay, Ruth, you've been diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, and the odds of you surviving the next year are 20%? I mean, did they ever give you anything like that, or no?
They told me they couldn't tell me anything. Yeah. And that's in the book. We can't tell you if you have weeks, months, years. We just don't know. And I don't think a lot has changed with doctors. My own PCP just 3 weeks ago said, you can't possibly get enough protein on a vegan diet. And I said, oh, yes, I can. No, that's a myth. They're missing essential amino acids. And there's a chart in Dr. McDougall's book and also in my cookbook, which I copied, showing all the 8 essential amino acids and how if you get enough calories in each of these foods, which is the range of plant foods, you will get the essential amino acids more than the minimum level. And you can build muscle, you can build endurance, and
you can build everything you need. Yeah, it's really unfortunate the amount of ignorance that prevails in the medical profession to this day, when it is the most powerful tool in their.
Okay, let me go back to where we were at that point.
So where we were, I believe, was the reconstruction surgery. No. Okay. All right. You tell me, where are we, Ruth?
Yeah. Well, that was a year later to have the implant. But what was happening a few months after this surgery, the Honolulu Marathon came up again. This was July, and December was my next marathon, which, of course, I entered, and I had been training. And I crossed the finish line, and I'd taken 17 minutes off my last marathon. I thought, wow. And I felt so much energy. It was so energized. You know where Kapiolani Park is, where that
Yeah.
marathon ends. The ocean's right there. So I take off my shoes and I go for a swim. And people are, and I said, it's the vegan. Oh, come on. It can't be a vegan diet, a vegan diet and all that. So, and then a few months later, I was, no, I guess it was about a year later.
What year are we in, Ruth?
82.
82.
1982. Yeah. And so in 1983, I just happened to be watching some news, ABC Wild World of Sports.
Yeah.
And I see this triathlon, 1983. And at that time, it was here. It started right here in Honolulu, Waikiki Beach for the 2.4-mile swim, and around the island for the 112-mile bike. And then you run a marathon. And I thought, my gosh, how do these people do that? And I thought, wait a minute, I know how to swim. I was raised in Lanikai, which is right on the beach. In fact, an aside, I was 7 years old, playing on the beach one Sunday morning, a little before 8 o'clock, December 7th, 1941.
Oh,
Guess
no.
what?
Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor. But it was Kaneohe, where my dad worked and had the midnight shift. So he was at work. He was an avionics technician at the time, knew radar, and saw these planes coming in. And they started bombing Kaneohe. And Bellows was on the other side of where I was in Lanikai. Bellows Field was an active Air Force run, was a Navy at the time. And so these bombs were going on both sides. So that's an interesting bit of history. There are very few people still alive that remember Pearl Harbor, December 7th. So
what were you, can you remember as a 7-year-old what you were thinking?
6-year-old.
6.
Yeah, 41. In 1941, I was 6 years old. I didn't know what was happening. I saw all the neighbors coming out of their house and watching these dive bombing and explosions on both sides. It was just an incredibly traumatic scene for everybody. And my father actually didn't come home for 48 hours. They had bombed the roads with access to the base. It was kind of like an island out with water on both sides. And they dropped one bomb there. No cars could get on and off the base. So anyway, they're very traumatic. Now to get back to IRONMAN, and because the traffic was so bad in 83, they did move it to the Big Island where traffic was a lot better. Anyway, I thought, I know how to swim because as a 6-year-old, I was, knew how to swim and dive and all that. And I have an old rusty bike in the garage. I can bike. Maybe I can do that. Oh, come on, lady. You're a cancer patient. You're 49 years old. You're an old lady. There's no way you can do an Ironman. And the thought kept niggling at me. Maybe you can. No, I can't. Maybe you can. So there was a half marathon in 1983, and I entered that. And, it's just the half distance, half a 1.2 miles swim. And it was at Kaneohe, the same base that had been attacked. And I saw the hangar where the bombs had fallen, and they still had remnants of the damage there and all that. So it's kind of a sentimental thing as well. And I got a first place in my age group, which qualified me for Kona. And so I thought, wow, this diet is incredible. I can train harder. I recover faster. And so I just redoubled my efforts in training and put my entry in for Kona, and of course got in. And it was just.
And so how did Kona go for you in 1983? Did you finish?
But that wasn't Kona. That was the half
No, I
Ironman
know. I mean, but didn't you go to Kona though? You qualified for
in
Kona.
84.
Okay.
84 was my first Kona. In fact, you know how baseball cards always have men on them? Man came up
Yes.
to me after one of my talks and he said, "We need a woman on a baseball card."
There you are.
There I am.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
vegan Ironman triathlete, and on the back, the credentials featured in the documentary Forks Over Knives, which was a biggie, winner of 900 trophies. You can see behind me. You see
Yeah.
that golden shoe right there? That
Yes.
was Runner's World Runner of the Year.
Runner's World. Wow.
Runner's World. Yeah, it's a
Well,
size 14, Nike.
well, good, good. We like a big gold shoe. Uh,
Yeah.
Ruth, and that's something we haven't talked about, but you were such wonderful, a wonderfully featured athlete and cancer survivor in Forks Over Knives. And we know that that came out in 2011 and did probably more to move the needle as far as getting people to look at a whole food plant-based diet than any book or any film before or since.
Yeah. In fact, we're going to be the Vegan Society of Hawaii. Our June meeting is going to be showing Forks Over Knives.
Ah,
I told our president, Lorraine Sakaguchi, you know, it's been so long since people have seen it. Every
mm.
once in a while, someone will recognize me. In fact, I was in Lowe's. I think you have Lowe's all over.
Oh yeah.
And at the checkout line, and this man was walking towards me and pointing. He said, "You're the one that's in Forks Overnight." I said, "Oh my God, you recognize me after all these years?" He said, "Listen, my wife and I watched it 7 years ago, and we changed right then and there. She is going to be so excited when I get home and tell her that I met you, and here's her baseball card."
Yeah. Ruth, do you get up every morning and put on that headband? It seems to be such a part of your whole repertoire.
Yeah, yeah. It's a sweatband.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, yeah. When I used to sweat, but it's almost like a trademark for me. Plus, it keeps my hair up.
Yeah.
I haven't cut it. The last time I had a haircut was in 1995 when I was in the hospital, and a friend, another athlete, was a beauty shop operator, and she said, "Let me come to the hospital and do your hair for you." And that was back in, oh my God, in the 90s last time. But I'm losing a lot of hair, and
Mhm.
that's one of the side effects of what I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
Made
Yeah, I definitely want you to, but I love the headband because, or the hairband, whatever you want to call it, a sweatband, because it so reminds me of my mother, and she always wears that. The first thing in the morning,
Oh,
she puts it on to kind of take her hair back. So
yeah,
I'm a fan. I'm a fan.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so where do you want to go in telling your story at this point? Because you just talked about the Ironman triathlon
Yeah.
in '84.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you about, do you know who Kenneth Cooper is? The Cooper.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. This is the book that started me running.
Hmm.
And I was planning on starting with that, going all the way back to
Hmm.
1968,
Wow.
when I happened to see the word aerobics and had never heard of it before. And out of curiosity, I read the most effective physical fitness plan ever. Oh, I got to read that. I was at a newsstand about to board a long flight from San Francisco to Honolulu, needed something to read. So I read through this. You know, it didn't take long because a lot of there are tables in there. So I thumbed through those and decided, okay, I'm going to start running. The next morning, I went out for a run before work. I ran to the end of my block, came back, and got in the car and measured the distance. It's a half mile down, half mile back. And I thought, I ran a whole mile. So that was pretty exciting for me. And I did it the next morning and the next morning and the next morning. It was like some people take to running and some don't. Boy, I sure did. I loved it.
So that's
And
what started it all. Tell me,
yeah,
did you get strange looks from people that
oh boy.
saw a woman running?
Oh, back. Yeah. In the 68, 69, 70. Yeah. If you were thought running, uh, if it was a male, you're running from the police, or if it's female running to catch a bus or whatever, people just, it was usually early in the morning, semi dark.
And how many, if you had to guesstimate, how many races between running races and triathlons have you competed in over the course of your life?
And swim races. The
Yes,
Waikiki
and swimming.
had their races, and the Hawaii Bicycling League had their races. I entered them all.
And,
And so it's been, well, I remember when I was 64, my goal was to do 64 races. As I'd been going up, entering all these races and winning, how could you not do it? It was so much fun, so rewarding, and I get to talk to people after the race. See, the vegan diet. For how many years now I've been saying that, and
so you did 64 races in 1 year.
yeah,
In
every
1 year.
weekend.
That's
In
cool.
fact, one weekend I did 3 races. There was a Friday night uh, sun run at one of the local colleges, a short one. And then Sunday morning, there was a 10K run at 7 a.m. No, it's 5K at 7 a.m. And at 8 o'clock, there was a triathlon. And I thought, how am I going to? I want to do it. I want to do it. I talked to the race director of the triathlon, and I said, Sharon, I'm going to do the 5K at Ala Park, and then get in the car after I cross the finish line and drive to the start of the triathlon. I hope I can make it. I think I can. If I finish the 5K in 20 minutes, I should be okay. She said, don't worry. I'll hold the start until you get here. How nice. So I did make it. I got another first place. The Honolulu Advertiser, our local newspaper, has the sports column with all the race results. And here's the column, one column of the results of the Ala Moana 5K race, and right next to it, the results for the triathlon. And you see my name almost lined up like that next to each other. I've still got that clipping.
Yeah.
And I get a telephone call from the sports editor, and he said, I can't believe what I'm just reading. Yeah. You did both of these races, got a first place in both. How'd you do it? So he interviewed me, and there was a nice write-up in that.
That's absolutely extraordinary, Ruth.
I know. Yeah. Serendipity again. So.
Now, yeah. Ruth, I also want you to tell the story, because I think it's really indicative of your can-do attitude and never say die, never say quit. You were out biking and you got hit by a truck and you broke your pelvis. So you even won a wheelchair race. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I had been, well, those are two separate.
Okay.
Yeah. The first one was 8 weeks before my first Kona Ironman, was when I was on the Big Island. You remember the course, mm-hmm. And there's the airport, and the end of the bike, you're coming back towards Kona. And I had just passed the airport on this training ride 8 weeks before I'd gone over to the Big Island to test out the course and check it out and do the whole bike race. Yeah. And I passed the airport. I remember that. The next thing I know, I'm in the hospital, and I say, what happened? Where am I? where's my bike? And the nurse there started chuckling. She said, "You've been asking that same question for hours." And an X-ray, one of the technicians came in to take some more blood, and she said, "You even asked her what happened with your bike." Well, it was 10 o'clock at night, and I had had a concussion, and I was training with a buddy, Teresa, and she was behind me, maybe 400 feet, and saw this truck clip me. And I went down hard and was knocked out, unconscious. And so they called 911, an ambulance picked me up and took me to the hospital. And that was in the morning, late morning. And that was, you talk about can-do recovery. The attending ER doc at the time is Frank Farron. Frank Farron was a longtime medical race director. Does that name ring a bell? Frank Farron?
It doesn't to me, no, but.
Yeah, he was. So he was the attending ER doc. And when he came to see me, I told him, I'm entered in the Ironman. I have got to heal fast enough to do it. And he said, well, with that broken pelvis, there's no way you're going to recover in time. And I'm thinking to myself, he doesn't know the value of this diet that I'm on. And I know the recovery, what it's like, what I can do. 8 weeks, I think I can do, but I didn't tell him. Or I at first I did. And, just plan on doing it next year and let yourself recover. And so I'll show you. So I got home a few days later, back on Oahu, and started walking, recovering, and I had a stationary bike. And I got on the bike, and the first minute was extremely painful. So I get off and think, well, it's too soon to bike. And the next day I'd go for 2 minutes, and it started to hurt. So I'd quit. And it was that gradual recovery, active recovery, which I think was so important, because one of these days I'm going to feel no pain, and I want to know which day that is. So every day. And the same with the swim, having to kick and swim. And he said, no kicking, no swimming. So what I did was just swim upper body. It's like you put the floats in between your thighs, and it keeps you elevated and you can swim. So I did the Waikiki rough water swim in September, which was not long after that. And I was still on crutches. In fact, one of my finish line pictures
I saw it. Yeah.
On crutches. Yeah. Because I couldn't do any weight bearing at that point. And so I just recovered as fast as I could and got to Kona, and I'm at the start, and I'm thinking, well, I'm here. I'm just going to see what I can do, how far I can go. And I don't have to finish. I have nothing to prove. I just want to be here and see what I can do. So the gun goes off at the start, and I make the swim under the cutoff, 2 hours, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And get on the bike, and it's somewhat painful. I remember the final hill coming up, and thinking, well, okay, I did the swim and the bike. So if I can't do the run, I'm happy. I did what I could, and far more than was predicted. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to run. At the time, the Keauhou was 5 miles from the start in Kailua Kona. Keauhou, that was a transition from the bike to the run. And so I thought, well, I'll just run to Kailua Kona and stop there, because that's where the start was. And so I got there, and I thought, oh, I can go up to the start of the Queen Keomana Highway, up that hill, and then I'll stop. And so I kept going and going and going. And finally, I come all the way around, approaching the finish line. And guess who's standing there? Dr. Frank.
Frank.
And he's shaking his head, saying, if I hadn't seen it, I would not believe it. That is incredible. Said, see, the diet is so important. So,
wow. Well, okay.
Yeah.
So Ruth, incredible. You have such an indomitable spirit. It's crazy. You want to get back to the reconstruction?
Okay. It's one of the main changes in this new edition of A Race for Life. There's several. Let me go back to one of the positive ones. There was some research. It started on men with prostate cancer, and they found out that myokines can suppress cancer growth, petri dishes, cancer cells, myokines, which are produced by exercising the skeletal muscles. You know what the skeletal muscles, the main ones are the legs, running. And so I thought, that probably applies to breast cancer as well as prostate cancer, same cause, the diet and hormone overstimulation of prostate and the breast. And so I thought, the 14 years that I was running before being diagnosed, I was exercising my skeletal muscles every day and producing those myokines, which I think, even though the cancer was that big, it could have killed me by then had I not been a runner. It was an aha moment. I'll bet you the fact that I was a runner made me survive as well as I did, not even know that I had cancer, and that it could have killed me long before it was discovered that big. So that was it's something that people need to know. Exercise, skeletal muscles produces myokines, which suppress cancer growth.
Well, and you have a whole, and just to piggyback on that, you have a whole chapter in the new book on angiogenesis versus the myokines. And it's a really, really cool concept that I don't think many people know about.
Yeah, that's right. Angiogenesis, the cancer cell's tumor produces its own blood supply, and that starts immediately. So it can skip the axillary nodes. And they do that. One of the tests for staging breast cancer is the axillary nodes. And they say if just one's positive, then it has spread. But what we think happens, and one of the radiologists told me, if you picture the breast as a volcano and you've got lymph nodes all around, and if it's an interior part of the breast, the upper, lower, medial quadrant, that it drains into the mediastinal lymph nodes, which are in the middle of the chest, around the ribs, in the center. And they never thought to test those. They only test axillary. So I thought, that's an interesting thing that still exists. They only test axillary and maybe make a wrong prognosis, because if it's negative, doesn't mean it hasn't spread. And Dr. McDougall told me it starts spreading right away. The lymph node is no way to diagnose the stage.
Gotcha.
Okay, so when a year later, and I had enough skin, because every day I'd stretch the skin, and finally the plastic surgeon said, okay, we've got enough skin for an implant. And so I could hardly wait. I remember in the hospital the night before thinking, they make purple marks on where they're going to put the implant in the inframammary fold that I mentioned before, right below the breast. And they were going to reconstruct a nipple. And I thought, I can finally be normal again. And so that's chapter 18 in my book, Reconstructing a Body and a Life, how wonderful those implants were. Well, back in 2014, I was running and I tripped and fell and ruptured the saline implant and broke my arm.
Can I stop you for a sec?
Yeah.
When did you get those implants? What year?
The first several, you have to change them out every few years. They're not one and done.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But
And
when
these
did you
were
when did you get your first ones? Was it 1980? When was it? 3?
83.
Okay, okay,
Wait,
okay.
yeah, diagnosed 82. The skin grew enough in 83, and these were the polyurethane. They didn't have silicone then. And
Okay.
so over the years, the 90s, they were uh, developing more realistic breast implants, silicone. And in 2014,
So
I
Ruth, I'm just so curious. So what do they do? Do they make an incision and then take out the pre-existing one and then put in new ones? Is that
yeah,
what happens?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, when I, with the broken arm and the ruptured implant, naturally it was an ambulance that took me to the hospital, and I saw the plastic surgeon, and he said, "Well, let's just replace the other one with these new allergen textured implants. They don't encapsulate like is a complication, a common one, and you'll love them." And I said, "Okay, let's do it." And so I had these new silicone implants. And right about that time, I was starting to have symptoms. And I thought, balance problems, proprioception. I kept bumping. This was very gradual in the start, that just gradually got worse and worse. And I thought, what's going on? Well, I checked with my PCP. Oh, it's your age. These things happen as you age, your hair loss, your balance, all these things, old age. And so I thought, well, okay, let's see. Um, it never occurred to me that breast implants could be a problem. And until I was visiting in Canada, picked up, they're so far ahead of us in several ways. Better diet, but they're getting worse. Anyway, I picked up a newspaper, again, curiosity, serendipity. I opened the page. What do I see? Breast implant illness, a nightmare. And I said, oh, that's silly. They wouldn't put these in if they weren't safe. My gosh, that's crazy. And so I thought, well, I'm curious. I'm just going to read the symptoms. Go down the list. Check, 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 check. I thought, oh my God, that's what's caused the problems I've been having. I run to the phone and I get through to the reporter who wrote the story. And I said, yeah. She said, yes, I have it. And you've got to get those implants out right away. It's going to get worse. And she said, call my surgeon. And she gave me his name and number. I get to talk to him and I tell him, I've got breast implant illness. I've had these in for several years and the symptoms are terrible. He said, yes, let's get you into surgery as soon as possible. Give me your MSN. I said, oh, what's that? Oh. He said, you're not Canadian. I said, no, I'm a visitor. And he said, I can't do the surgery then. I said, I'll pay. Whatever it costs, I'll pay, please. He said, it would invalidate my malpractice insurance. I can't do your surgery. I suggest you get back to Hawaii and have it done there. So I get on the phone again, call for a reservation, and actually got on. I had to pay first class to get a seat because it was almost full the next morning. And so I get back to Honolulu and immediately call the plastic surgeon. And I met a lot of resistance there. He said, oh, no, it's your age. Like that same old trope. It's your age. Well, we know. I've got to recommend Michael Greger's book, How Not to Age.
Oh yeah.
Have you read it?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It is. Oh my gosh, it's so revelatory. There
Mm.
is so much good information in there.
Yeah.
And I've been taking advantage of that. And so
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah. I had Michael on the podcast to talk about the book when it first came out.
yeah. And I signed up on the book club too. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, Ruth, how old are you today?
89 and a half.
89 and a half. I love
Yeah.
it. As we get older, we bring in the half just like we did when we were younger.
Yeah.
and and so you're just about the same age as my
I'm
mother.
close enough, excuse me, close
Yeah.
enough to say almost 90.
Yeah. Yeah. You sure are. So what can I ask you this? Like, so as you're turning the corner to 90, what are your goals for the next 20 years?
I need to be working hard on recovering from the damage, the balance. I have had physical therapy for almost every part of the body, starting with the balance, starting with, oh, one of the symptoms is joint damage, because what happens is your immune system detects the silicone and the heavy metals. The heavy metals that are leaked are lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium, aluminum,
Mm.
all these bad actors in the implants to make the silicone powder solid. The silicone comes as a powder,
Yeah.
or silicon, and to make it silicone, you have to add all these things. And they tested them. Yeah, they put them on dogs and just watch the dogs. Can you imagine silicone implants on dogs?
Mhm.
And for 2 years, no changes that they could detect. And of course, in the laboratories, their temperatures are in the 60s. And outside, your temperature can be 70, 80, plus you've got the movement over the implants. And oh, by the way, they cut the pectoralis muscle. The pectoralis is it's a muscle like that covers the chest. It goes from the top to the bottom like a big fan. Well, they cut part of it in the middle because you need to make room for, now they're doing the submuscular implants. So they cut, and nobody told me this at the time, and this is in my book. These are the questions I should have asked.
Yeah.
And one of them is, do you cut my pectoralis muscle? And is this going to have any effect on my swimming? Well, logically, of course. And so that's,
Yeah.
I had the surgery to have them out. The surgeon said, before I went, as I was going flat, he said, I saw the remnant of the pectoralis that it cut. I tried to stretch it to connect it to the sternum where it originally inserted, but it wouldn't stretch. So I have this lump right here, which is the middle part of the pectoralis muscle. And try as I hard as I can to be strong, it's there's that disability. Can't
Yeah.
deny it.
Ruth, tell me, between the three sports, swimming, biking, and running, is there one that you love more than the others?
Running.
Running. Yeah.
Yeah.
You were first a runner and always a runner. You love the
Yeah.
running. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. One of the symptoms that was really scary in 2018 was I was having trouble running. And it was very gradual. I told you about tripping and falling. And it was like, plyometrics is your
Sure.
ability to bounce. I was losing that. And when you run, you have to get airborne.
Mm.
And I noticed one day, my gosh, yet I can't pick up my feet. And it's more like a shuffle. And I thought, what's going on? This was just before. And then in 2019, when Dr. Turbert, Canada again, knew what was happening in the United States with implants and how many women were getting them. And he knew in Canada how dangerous they were. And he had been doing research. He was a rheumatologist at the University of Alberta in Canada. On his own dime, he flew and asked for a briefing with the FDA. And that link is in my book, where you can watch that what he showed the FDA, the damage that's done, the silicone, and how you can't get it out of your body, and all these heavy metals. And it was just, and in fact, right about that time, I just was watching the evening news, which I usually do while I'm eating supper. A no-no, but I do it. It's the only time I watch television is the 5 o'clock news, both local and national, following what all's happening.
Right.
Anyway, in 2019, the same year that I flew back from Canada, the same year I got this out, I saw ABC News, breaking news: breast implants recalled and banned from causing all this damage. I thought, finally, yes, it's out there. And I thought, oh, I switched channels to CBS. And the timing, again, amazing, was the same news report, slightly modified, but same thing: recalled, banned, and bad news. And so I thought, well, the last one, NBC, and sure, Rick, can you believe, caught that one too.
Yeah.
And that was 2019. And do you know how many doctors know about this? Just like in diet, they don't know about breast implant illness.
Yeah.
And it's still controversial because plastic surgeons says, oh yeah, it can happen, but it's rare.
Right.
Well, it's not rare at all. It's just the symptoms are so subtle. And women who are not vegan, who don't have a good diet, they're going to be worse off. But at least,
which is the vast majority of
yeah.
of us right now.
Yeah, so that's a major development. So in chapter 18, reconstructing a body and a life, and new whole part 2, destroying a body and a life. My killer breasts. You've heard that expression. I've heard men say she's got killer breasts, meaning good things. We've got this obsession about women and their breasts. Well, mine tried to kill me the first time with cancer, and they tried again with the implants. So,
but they're not going to succeed. Ruth, I am going to just say that it's incredible how you've been through the ringer. You are, you are a warrior. You're hanging in there. I want to let everybody know that your book, it's what we've talked about. It's 3 lifestyle changes. The first is whole food, plant-based, low fat for those that require that. The second is fitness training that you have been doing since 1960s. And you just epitomize somebody that loves movement of your body in any way, shape, or form, whether it's with crutches or in a wheelchair or on your 2 feet. And then, of course, the thing that really defines you, Ruth, is your can-do attitude, which you say is the third element. I want to read this quote, Ruth, because and it's in your book, and I think it epitomizes your philosophy that you borrowed from Dr. Seuss. And it's, when something bad happens to you, you have 3 choices. You can either let it define you, you can let it destroy you, or you can let it strengthen you. I'm a warrior who now wears those battle scars proudly.
It almost brought me to tears, Rip. Yeah, so true. Excuse me.
Oh,
yeah, emotional moment, huh? Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
I believe that, and it's not easy. It is. It takes being a warrior, because it's so easy to give up. But
Yeah.
What's the alternative?
No, exactly. Well, Ruth, you are a race for life what a life you have led up until almost 90 years old. And
Yeah.
I am so glad that we ran into each other a couple months ago and that you agreed to be part of the Plant Strong podcast, because you're an icon, and your story, for those that don't know it, people really need to know it, because there's so many great takeaways.
Yeah.
Truly.
And different types of stories, things that you'd never think would happen. The serendipity, just incredible. The odds of someone having the same things happen to them are infinitesimal. Just reading something in the paper about breast cancer research, reading in the paper about breast implant illness, which all this stuff is new.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, and tell me, in Hawaii, what do you say to somebody to say thank you? Is it mahalo? Is it aloha? What do you say?
Mahalo is
Mahalo.
thank you. Yeah.
Mahalo.
Aloha is love, and it's hello, it's goodbye, it's a greeting that is very positive.
Wow. Well,
nui loa, very much. Mahalo.
Well, mahalo for being on the Plant Strong podcast. Can you give me a virtual fist bump?
Yeah, there.
I can't see your fist.
There
you go.
Yeah, there's the camera.
There you go. I hit you.
Yeah, I was going to punch you in the face.
All right, Ruth, stay strong. Stay plant strong.
My muscle.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, compared to you. I'm working on it.
I know you are. All right. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Ruth's book, A Race for Life, a diet and exercise program for super fitness and reversing the aging process, along with several other books, is available right now, and I'll be sure to link up to that in today's show notes. I love her can-do attitude, and let's face it, she has been dealt some unlucky cards, but because of her diet and lifestyle, Ruth continues to be a force for good, continuously advocating for all of us to live a life of adventure like she has. And at 90 years old, I think it's fair to say she's just getting started. The Plant Strong podcast team includes Carrie Barrett, Lori Kordowich, and Amy Mackey. If you like what you hear, do us a favor and share the show with your friends and loved ones. You can always leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And while you're there, make sure to hit that follow button so that you never miss an episode. As always, this and every episode is dedicated to my parents, Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr. and Ann Cryle Esselstyn. Thanks so much for listening.